what's up everyone? I'm Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, where we cover all things Swift and SwiftUI related. And in this video, we're going to create our first model. It's going to be called a coin model, and it's basically representative of the coin data that we're going to be downloading from the internet. We're adding it this early in the course because we're going to use this coin model on so many different views and move it around our entire app. So it's important to just get this out of the way early on in the course. And there actually is a little bit of kind of boring code in this video where we have to type out certain things very manually. And because of that, I've actually included some of the files that we're going to be creating in the resources folder that I have on my website, and I will link it below. So if you want to just follow along and not actually type everything, definitely just check out that resources. But if you do that, I do not recommend just copying and then skipping this video, because there is a lot of good information here that you will probably want to know if you're going to do this on your own and in your own apps.
All right, welcome back everyone. I am back in our Xcode project, and in this video we're going to start setting up the model for the data that we're going to download and put onto the screen here for all of our coin prices. So what we're going to do in the navigation view here, outside of this core folder, I'm going to right click, create another new group, and this is going to be called models. This is where we're going to put all of our models in our app. I'm going to bring this actually below the extensions here. And the first model we're going to create, let's right click the folder, create a new file. This is going to be a Swift file, and again we're using Swift instead of SwiftUI here because we don't need the preview. We basically only use SwiftUI when we're needing the preview to make a view. But now we're just going to create a model, so it'll be a Swift file, and I'm going to call this coin model. Go ahead and click create. And inside here, let's create a class. Let's call it coin model, and let's open the brackets. And I do want to point out here that I'm calling this coin model to just be very specific that this is a model, because this is a tutorial on YouTube. But if I was actually making this in a production app, I would probably just call this coin and not use the word model. But for our purposes, this is just being extra explicit so you guys know exactly what's going on here. And now we're going to take a quick first look at the API that we are using. So I'm going to go to coingecko.com. And this is basically just a public website that has cryptocurrency data that we can see here. But really useful, they have underneath the resources, they have a crypto API. And if this API ever does go down, which I've been using it for several years now, I've never had a problem. But if it ever goes down, I will put in the comments below a replacement API that you guys can use. But while we're here, just to show you guys, it is a 100% free API. We don't need any special keys. It is reliable, at least they say it's reliable. And they have over 7,000 coins, 400 exchanges, pretty much all the data that we're going to need for our app. So I'm going to click Get Started here. And the cool thing about this API is that they have this web portal, which is super beginner friendly. So if I start maybe here with just like the ping to check that the API is online, we could click try it out, and then we can click execute. And this actually gives us, this is the URL we need to request in our code. And this is the data that we're going to get back if it's successful. So all we need to do is add this into our code, request it, and then we're going to get this JSON data back that says Gecko says, I guess it says V3 to the moon. We're not going to actually use this URL, but you can see how this is so beginner friendly and super helpful when dealing with APIs, because sometimes when you're using these third-party APIs, they don't have any documentation, and it's kind of hard to figure out what URL you really need or what the download is going to look like. So this is super handy. I'm going to click cancel here, close up the ping. And the first one we're going to actually use is the markets API down here. So I'm going to click on this markets, and I'm going to click try it out. And there's actually a bunch of settings that we could set when we are requesting this URL. First, we can set what currency we want. So I'm going to use USD, but obviously you can change your currency by just typing that in right here. And then we can give it specific coin IDs if we want certain coins only. But we're going to leave that blank because we're just going to get the top coins. We can also set a category if we want maybe like decentralized finance coins or stable coins. But we're going to leave that blank as well. we want our query to order by market cap descending. This just basically means that the first coin is going to have the highest market cap and the last coin we get is going to have the lowest market cap. Then we can change how many results we want. So if we only want to get the top 1 or we want the top 10, we can set this to 10. But we're going to actually just get the top 250, which is the most that it lets us get per query. So here I'll put 250. And then we can add a page here. So this is super useful if we want to perform multiple queries. So if we keep this as 1, it's going to get the top 250 coins. If I put this as 2, it's going to get coins 250 to 500, because that would be page 2 of this request. So if you wanted to keep downloading more and more coins, you could basically call the same API and just increment your page number. So 3, 4, 5. Whatever you want. But we're just going to get the first page, so the top 250 coins. And then we have this option to include a sparkline. So this is extra data that we can get. And the sparkline is just basically the prices for the last 7 days. So if we don't need them, we'll click it to false, but we are going to actually use these. So I'm going to set this equal to true. We're going to use the last 7 days data to make a chart of that data later on in the course. And then finally, if we want to get the price change percentage over the last maybe hour, 24 hours, 7 days, we can add that here. And we're going to get the price change for the last 24 hours. Then we can click execute. And I just love how simple this is and easy to use. And down here, first we can look at our request URL. So this is the URL we need to request in our app. And just looking at this URL, we can see all of the settings that we put. We have the currency is USD. The order is market cap descending. The per page is 250 coins. We want page 1. And then sparkline is true. Price change is 24 hours. So if we wanted to then get page 2, all we need to do is request the same URL, but page we can change to number 2. So before we move forward, I'm just going to copy this URL because we're going to use it, I think, in the next video, but I don't want to lose it. So let's copy this URL here, and I'm going to put a multi-line comment, and at the top, let's just call this CoinGecko API info. And then in here, I'm going to first add the URL. Let's paste that in. And the reason I'm making this multi-line comment is because up here later we can command option left arrow and fold it up. And again, that's also the editor code folding, fold. You can fold it up so it's nice and neat. But while we have this open, let's also copy and paste some of the data that we're returning. So I look back, when we request this URL, it's going to return this data. And this is actually a very long web page now because this is a ton of data that we are getting. You guys can scroll down this for a while. But essentially, if we look at it, it's going to give us an array of this JSON data. And the data, obviously, the first item here is Bitcoin, symbol is BTC, we get the name, we have a URL to download the image for the icon name for the Bitcoin, and we get all this other lovely data which we can use in our app, and it's so awesome that this is free. So I'm going to copy this from the opening brackets here. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. So let's see. Right, it's this bracket here, right after the price change. I'm holding the shift button and I'm going to click right after the price change here to the closing brackets. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to go back into our code and I'm just going to paste this here. And let's call this JSON response. And I'm going to paste the JSON response that we get. So this is all the data that we are getting back from JSON. And I'm just going to delete some of this sparkline in 7D because we don't need all this in the comments. So I'm just going to delete most of these rows. We're going to use them in the actual app, but we don't need it in this comment here. So this is all the data that we're getting back, which is a lot of data. And we can go ahead and start creating our coin model directly based off of this. So we have an ID, that's a string. We have a symbol, that's a string. So we can start doing let ID of type string, let symbol of type string. And we can go through the rest of these and type these all out. And it would probably work, but that actually is a little bit challenging. You know, you might get wrong if you mistype it. This is a lot to just copy and paste directly. So what I recommend and what I do when I'm building out these apps is I take that JSON data and I go into a website called app.quickttype.io. And there's a couple websites like this out there. And then in this app, I can just copy and paste our JSON data. And when I do that, I can set the language to Swift and it will automatically give me a model for what we're looking for. So I can see that down here. So we're going to actually use this plain types only here just to get the core values. And I actually went ahead and looked at the data and made this ahead of time. And I noticed that sometimes some of the data is not valid for every single coin. Like maybe like the circulating supply isn't available for a specific coin. So because of that, we're going to make all properties optional. And that basically gives us these question marks at the end of all of these. So I'm then going to copy this code, which we can just click copy code here on the right side, and jump back into Xcode, paste it down here. Let's delete this comment and delete the import foundation. And this struct is going to be called coin model. So to delete our original coin model. And a couple things I want to do to edit this really quickly. First off, the ID, the symbol, and the name, I want to make sure that we do get them, so I don't want them to be optional. So I'm going to delete this. The image I also want to make sure we get, which can't be optional. And then the current price I want to make sure we get. So I'm going to make that its own line. We'll say let current price, and that will be of type double. I'm going to get rid of the current price down here. And while we're on this double, I noticed that the values actually come through as doubles, not as integers. And this app, I guess, just thought these were integers because they were rounded in that example. But to be safe, let's make all of these doubles. So I'm just gonna make this a double, make this a double, make this a double, make this a double. And then finally we have this ROI, which is of type NS null. I guess because in our example it didn't have an ROI, so I'm just going to actually delete this because we don't need that. We're not going to actually use it. So now we have our coin model, and I should have mentioned earlier that I'm actually going to put this coin model file into that resources folder. So if you download that resources folder from my website, which I'll also link in the comments of this video, you can just download this and you don't need to go through all those steps. Although understanding how to get to this spot is really important in making an app because you're always going to have to set up your models, and this is a very complex one. I'm going to delete this comment here. All right, now we're going to take our coin model, we're going to make it conform to identifiable. And we're going to make it conform to identifiable. And because it has an ID, it already conforms to identifiable. So we don't actually need to do anything else. And the reason we're doing this is so that each coin has an ID, and this way we can use it in those for each statements in our view. And then we're going to also make it conform to codable. We're going to get an error message that it does not conform to decodable, and that's because there's one type in here that is sparkline in 7D. And this sparkline, which is also down here, it's a subtype, does not conform to codable. So down here we can also add codable. Our error should go away. And then lastly, I want to add one more variable to this coin model. And we're going to say down here, let current holdings. That will be of type double, and we'll make it optional as well. And this current holdings is going to be how many coins the current user is holding. So if this was Bitcoin and I had 1 Bitcoin, the current holdings would be 1. But of course, we're not downloading that from the internet. That's why we're making it optional, because this will always fail when we initialize it and it will start at 0. And then we're going to update it so that we can update the current holdings afterward. And one final thing we need to look at here is that when we decode using the default codable, it's going to look for the exact names of all of these variables. So the current price with the camel case here, but if we look at the actual data that comes through, the current price has an underscore and there's no camel case. So we actually need to decode to this current price string here. Because of that, we need to add our custom coding keys to this coin model. So down here, I'm going to add a enum. We'll call it coding keys. And this will conform to string and coding key. Open the brackets. And in here, we basically need to add coding keys for all of these. And this is one of the least fun parts of coding when we have to actually do this. So I've put this file again in the resources folder, so you don't actually have to type this out. But if you want to type it out with me, we basically need a coding key for all of these. So what I'm going to do is click the plus sign here, add an editor on the right. And in this editor on the right, I'm going to scroll up to our JSON data. And then on the left here, we can start adding coding keys. And so the case, and we need a case for all of the variables here. If the name of the variable is exactly the same as the JSON title here, as the JSON key here, then we don't need to give it an extra string. So for this ID, for the symbol, we can just keep it as the regular default. So here we'll say case ID, comma, symbol, comma, name, comma, image. And that's because these four all have the exact, image is the exact same as image in the return JSON. Now, but the current price here has different text. Now we're going to do current price. We'll say case current price. And we need to give this an explicit string. So I'm going to just copy the current price from here. So I'm going to set it equal to the current price like that. I'm going to do this for all the rest of these as well. So now let's do market cap. Case market cap equals market cap. And I'm doing a lot of copying and pasting instead of typing it out because I don't want to get these wrong. Case market cap equals market cap rank. Let's do fully diluted case this equals this. And I know this is dreadful. It's dreadful for me too, but this is what we have to do here. Case high 24 hours equals high 24 hours. Case low 24 hours equals. Then I'm going to put a little bit of music over this part so that it is not just me sitting here typing and talking to myself. And then finally, we'll do just current holdings, which we know will fail. That's not part of the JSON data. If you did this correctly and you have a coding key for all of the variables, that error should now go away. If you're missing one, then this will you'll still have an error up here. And when we actually go to download data, if you are missing any of these specific pieces of data, you can always just come back and fix exactly what you're looking for. Now that we have our model, I want to add a little bit of logic so that we can actually use this coin model in our app. And the first thing I want to do is add a function so that after we get the model, we can update the current holdings. So underneath this enum here, I'm going to create a func. We'll say update holdings. And we'll open close parentheses, and this is going to return us an updated coin model, which is actually going to be a new coin model. We'll open the brackets. And when we call update holdings, we're going to pass in an amount, which will be of type double. This will be how many holdings that we now have. And in here, we're just going to return a coin model, and we're going to open the parentheses. And we have our two completions here. The first one is an initializer from the decoder. And that's if we had JSON data and we wanted to create a coin model. But now we also have our second decoder where we can actually input all of the data ourselves. So we're going to do this second one here. And it looks ugly, but these are all of the values that we just added up here, right? So all of these. So when we create a coin model, it's going to ask us what all of these values are. And when we're in this function, we're creating a coin model here. And we're calling this function here from within a coin model, right? Because this function is actually inside an existing coin model. So therefore, we can reference all of the values that are already existing in that coin model. And that's what we're going to do here. So in this updated holdings, we're going to reference the ID at the top there. We're going to reference the ID, and this is the ID that is at the top there that's already in this current coin model. We're going to do the same thing for all of these values. We're going to add the symbol, the name, the image, the current price, the market cap rank. I'm literally just copying the exact names of the parameter. Fully diluted valuation, total volume, high 24-hour, low 24-hour, price change 24-hour, price change percentage 24-hour, market cap change 24-hour, market cap change percentage. We have the circulating supply, the total supply, the max supply, the ATH change percentage, the ATH date, the ATL change percentage, the ATL date. We have the last updated, the spark line in 7D, the price change percentage 24-hour in currency. And then finally, we have our current holdings, and this is what we want to update. And we're going to just update this with the amount that we're passing into the function. So we'll paste that right here, and this will be the amount. So when we call update holdings, it's going to give us a new coin model with all of the same data as the current coin model, but with the updated holdings. All right, I know it was a lot of code just to get to that, but this is going to come in handy when we start updating our own portfolios. There's a couple more things I want to add into this coin model here. I'm going to create a var called current holdings value that will be of type double. Open the brackets. And I want this to be the value of our holdings. So scrolling back up, so if this coin model was, say, Bitcoin, and my current holdings was 1, the value of that would be the current holdings times the price. So we have the current price here. So if I was holding 2, it would be 2 times the current price. And that's the logic that we're going to add in this. So going down here, we're going to return. So we'll here say the current holdings. And the current holdings is an optional double. So optional double up here. So if we don't have any current holdings, if it is nil, we'll just set it equal to 0. Let's put that in parentheses. And then we want to multiply the current holdings times the current price. And just like that, we can now access our current holdings value. And then lastly, I want to also get the rank. So we'll say var rank of type int. And we'll open the brackets. And here we're going to return the market cap rank. And the market cap rank is coming through as a double, so we want to convert it to an int by just calling int, open the parentheses. And I think this is also optional. We'll get an error, yeah, it's optional. So if we don't have a market cap rank, we'll just make it 0. So now we have our current holdings value as well as our rank. All right, so I'm going to zoom out here and scroll up a little bit. And because we have this comment, we don't actually need it, but I like to keep the comment here in case like another developer is looking at our code, or if like we type something wrong, we can reference the JSON data here without going back into CoinGecko. So let's leave the comment here, but let's fold up the comment so that it's nice and neat. And that's it for this video. So I know this was a stressful video. This is definitely the most boring video in this series. Sorry that I had to put you guys through it so early in this course. But now that we have our coin model set up, we can start actually downloading coins and putting them in our app. And it's going to be awesome. And we're going to use this throughout pretty much our entire app, which is why we had to set it up so early in this course. All right, guys, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Nick. This is SwiftUI Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.